It's just like, no, it's the absence of this. That's how it's to be understood right now. There's a quasi-positive definition, so that because it's not annihilationism, right? It's not just a psychologism of just like, well, get rid of these mental states and that's Nibbana. It's not just that. There's something else to it, but the risk of the mind is once you positivize the definition, you start clinging after it at the intellectual level, trying to build a theory around it, and that is in fact leading you away from the goal. Which is why if you look through the entire Pali Canon, the amount of times that the Buddha tries to discuss Nibbana in positive terms are very slim. Because he doesn't want people to run away at the conceptual level. Because the way you realize it is by looking inside yourself and by taking out all these fetters and these unwholesome roots, you realize it for yourself. But it's not something that you can grab onto. Does that make sense?
Yes. It makes proto-sense.
Proto-sense. Well, at this point, that's the best we can hope for, I think. So we'll move on. You're all right?
And sorry, the four stages of sanctity are, sanctity is what again?
Sanctity is someone who has realized, who has had experiential insight into...
These are the 4 steps on the way to removing suffering?
Exactly.
Sorry, removing desire?
Suffering.
By removing desire.
Yeah, suffering and desire are almost synonymous, right? The reason there's suffering is because you desire things and the world is such that you can never have that desire satisfied.
Okay.
Everyone okay? We're good? All right. So, with the first insight into Nibbana of the stream winner, one has entered a stream which divides 2 shores. One beset with suffering and misery and one free from misery. This is the operative metaphor that you will see repeated throughout the canon. So one is guaranteed to reach a complete end of misery, that is the entire eradication within 7 more rebirths. And a stream winner is someone who has eradicated the first 3 fetters. The first 3 fetters are identity view, doubt, and attachment to rites and rituals. Okay? The first one of these is really cool, so I'm going to look at it in some detail. The second one, not as cool, but we'll look at it in quasi-detail. And the third one is kind of risky, so I'm going to kind of just move past it very quickly.
What's the samsara?
Samsara, the realm of, the world of conditionality, suffering. The world we live in, basically.
Oh, okay.
I will explain that in actually some detail later. But samsara is the opposite of Nibbana. Nibbana is the unconditioned, deathless realm. That's basically the positive definition. And samsara is the conditioned world of misery. Okay, so the second one is called the once-returner or sakadagami. The third stage is the non-returner or anagami, and the fourth stage is a completely liberated being, which is called an arhat. So I'll deal with those, the second, third, and fourth in turn. First, the sotapanna. So the first fetter that the sotapanna overcomes is identity view. Okay? This is the belief in a persistent self. Now Buddha explains the illusion of self, or anatta, in terms of the 5 aggregates. How many have heard that term before? That's okay, good. Okay, so the 5 aggregates are the following: matter, sensation, perception, consciousness, and sankharas, which is notoriously difficult to translate. Volitional formations or embodied conditioning are the best 2 that I've come across. That which reacts and conditions our responses to stimuli in the world. So matter is the raw physicality, the body as corpor, which is a Husserlian term, the sort of raw physical stuff of your being. Sensation, the phenomenal embodiment of your being, all those subtle sensations that are all over the body all the time, vibrating constantly as you sort of live in the world. A tingle in your finger, that's everywhere, all over your body, all the time. That's sensation, that's Vedana. Sanya, perception, that's sort of our classic idea of cognition, the object-directed sort of cognition of things in the world, that which recognizes and categorizes experience. Vijnana is consciousness, the awareness, the witnessing. Now, this is slightly different from the whole Western idea of consciousness. In Western philosophy, we talk about consciousness in terms of phenomenal properties, right? The redness and the blueness and all that stuff. This idea is more about the witnessing, that which observes. Okay? I hope that distinction is at least proto-clear.
So are the Vedana and the Sana the objects of the Vijnana?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well done. Okay, so the view that there is a self in behind or that it is identical with any of these aggregates is a self-view. Okay? That's an identity view, right? So there are 5 aggregates and 3 different ways that any one of these aggregates could be confused as a self. So that's 15 identity views. And if any of you in Western philosophy just sort of reflect for a minute, that's a lot of philosophy right in there, like a whole lot, right? Like this idea that our perception of objects and their constant movement in the world demands that there is something in and behind that perceptual modality which stays the same in order to make the representations cohere into a world model, right? Like all kinds of that speculation makes up massive amounts of philosophy. That's only the first of 10 fetters for the Buddha, right? You just like leave that aside. That is completely irrelevant to your achievement of liberation, okay? So something to bear in mind in terms of keeping the contrast clear. So the second fetter, skeptical doubt. Yes?
So what does it mean to escape these fetters or be free from these fetters? Like to not think about them, or to
they're not.
Sort of bad thoughts and something?
It's not. It's literally they don't arise in your thinking anymore. It's not like you ignore them when they arise. That's part of it. They're not there. Like the idea that you are persistent self, it's no longer part of your habitual moment-to-moment arising of the aggregates.
Okay, so but does it go along with that claim that, so like in the Buddhist teachings, what is it, the fairy?
Come again?
What's the name of this version of Buddhism again?
Theravada.
Theravada. In this, is there also along with the claim that it's false? All the claims of those fetters are false. Is that so? That's claim as well. Not only because you see if we want to get it could be that you're not supposed to think about it, but it's not actually claimed that they're false. You're not supposed to think about it. Like they're true. But
no, there is no self.
Okay, so
that's a substantial metaphysical statement. There is no such thing as a self.
Okay, so
your belief that it is self is an illusion.
Okay, so they both it's false and you shouldn't believe it.
Yeah, because by believing in it, you engender subtle attachments and cravings to things that don't exist, which cause you great misery.
But it's not just, as far as I understand, it's not just the belief; it's also your perception is structured as though there is a self.
Exactly. Like it's profoundly subtle. It's not just like, for instance, there are I'm sure plenty of philosophers who go around and who are Humean empiricists and believe that when they look within, all they see is the arising of certain sense impressions and that there is no self behind them. But they have certainly not transcended the first fetter of identity view because they walk around with so much ego, right? So much, oh, I know so much about Hume, I'm such an intelligent person, you're stupid, you don't, right? Like this kind of attitude. It's just as much a theoretical point of view about the nature of human cognition and self as it is a way of being in the world towards other people. Egolessness. Anatta. Without self. And so this operates at many different levels. Intellectually, yes, what you're saying, but also experientially at the second person level of interactions, it changes the way you're interacting. Yes?
So atta is the pronoun for I?
Atta means self.
Yeah.
And anatta means no self.
But does atta have any other significance beyond this term of art in this system?
Well, atta comes from, in Hinduism as well, and Indian philosophy all over the place. It's not something that the Buddha made up. His system is unique in the sense that he came along and said, oh, all this atta Brahma stuff you guys are on about, don't do that anymore. That's not going to help you. That being said, on a note on I, the first person pronoun, of course we need to use the term I to understand what we're talking about, right? This isn't saying that we can't use the first person pronoun at the level of discourse to define certain people speaking to other people. There are persons in the world, there are just no substantial, persistent selves that don't change. Is that clear? Okay. So, a good addition to this discussion, the second fetter of skeptical doubt. A point of convergence with Western philosophy, to be sure. A famous quotation, often cited and misunderstood, probably by myself, but I'll say it anyway. Don't go by reports, by legends, by traditions, by scripture, by logical conjecture, by inference, by analogies, by agreement through pondering views, by probability or by thought.